September, celebrated annually as Tourism Month, aims to highlight South Africa's diverse tourism offerings as well as the sector's contribution to the economy. But the sector has been one of the hardest hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, with Statistics South Africa reporting in April that this year the volume of tourists decreased by over 72% in 2020 compared to the previous year. With this year's theme being tourism for inclusive growth, how should we be rebuilding the industry before it's too late? My panel tonight includes the Deputy Minister of Tourism, Fish, Amos Mahlalela, the CEO of the Tourism Business Council of South Africa, Tshivhengwa, and the National Chairperson of the Federated Hospitality Association of Southern Africa, Rosemary. To be a part of the conversation tonight, WhatsApp your questions and comments to 072-110-5584, or you can tweet us tonight at Newsroom 405. Good evening to you all, and thank you very much for your time and joining us tonight here on In Focus. I suppose the purpose of this conversation, Tshifhiwa, as I mentioned, is to really gain some insight into the COVID-19 pandemic and its influence on tourist behavior in the short to medium term. What is the current level of perceived risk as far as tourists are concerned when it comes to South Africa? Tshifhiwa, I think Tshifhiwa, you're muted there. If you can unmute yourself.
No, I'm back on. You know, the usual mute on/off button. It's always there. But
all right, so a bit of a challenge there with Tshifhiwa. Let's try and reconnect with Tshifhiwa on a better line. Rosemary, let's bring you in and give us your perception from FEDHASA's point of view, the perceived level of risk when it comes to South Africa as a tourist destination.
Well, our main tourist market is from the UK and a few other European countries in America. And I think the tourists want to see that we're on the same level from a vaccination point of view as them. So the UK, for example, at the moment is about 80% vaccinated of adults from 16 upwards. So I think tourists want to see a destination where they can actually go to a place which is on a similar level with regards to vaccination. So we've got quite a long way to go, but hopefully things have sped up a bit more now and we will be able to catch up. So that part is very important. I think we will not receive tourists to the level that we want to receive them until we actually have an equal level of vaccination to our main tourist partners.
Yeah. And is that perceived risk largely external, or is there a degree of it that is happening internally? And how do you measure that the local market? How do they view that risk? Do they rather gauge it as importantly or rate it as importantly as the external tourists are rating it?
There's such a mixture of people's responses. Some people don't worry at all, and other people are not going out to visit hospitality places at all. So there's a big mixed bag of responses. So that's where we currently are. But obviously, as a country, we want to make sure that we vaccinate as much as possible, because we've seen through the UK, even though their vaccination, the COVID rates are exceptionally high at the moment, it is not negatively impacting on their healthcare system, because even though people are catching it, it's not actually translating into severe illness or deaths. So we're able to actually see what's being done elsewhere, and you can see how the UK is just opening up at the moment. And I think with us as South Africans being able to see what's being done elsewhere, that will also make people more confident knowing that once there is a high level of vaccination, things will open up and they'll feel more safe to actually visit local places.
Yeah. Tshifhiwa, I hope we are on a little bit of a better line there. Let's try it again. Destination risk perception of tourists is said it directly affects the tourist purchase intention. What is the perceived level of risk in South Africa right now, and how does it impact on the current travel behavior? And when you gauge future travel behavior as well, where does it sit?
Well, you know, we have had a situation in the past, couple of months, whereby there has been issues around, rioting and looting, And in the past, prior to that, we've had a situation whereby issues around safety and security has been, number one concern by many people across our source markets. Now, post-pandemic, there's going to be other considerations that are going to come into play, i.e. the issue of protocols in terms of health protocols, whether, the front line of the tourism value chain is vaccinated. That's going to be quite critical. And also, other things that we may not predict at the moment that they will come, a factor, as the time goes. So there has been many risks in terms of the brand image of South Africa that we need to deal with. And we need to do so fast to make sure that we energize the brand, and we ensure that, a lot of people who are sitting outside of South Africa can look at us in a favorable way. So there will be some stuff that's going to be done, by, both, national agencies and provincial agencies to make sure that we re-energize the brand, to make sure that, people look at us favorably, and to ensure that, when tourists are making choices, sitting where they are, we are part of that choice. We remain top of mind. So it's going to be critical, and it's the work that we're going to need to do going forward. So the brand image remains a critical aspect, and it's not only done through campaigns. It's what we do as South Africans that influence the brand image. We can do many campaigns, but if we don't protect the brand image by way of behaving the way we should behave, by way of being, patriotic to the country and making sure that we reduce levels of crime, it's going to be difficult to have a campaign, which is a marketing campaign, that will eradicate that. We have to start here at home, and we have to make sure that, we project what we are as South Africans to the world.
Yeah. Deputy Minister, good to have you with us. And of course, we are talking risk perception, and part of what we talk about when we talk risk perception is what happens in a crisis. Some crises we have control over, others are crises that are beyond our control, like a pandemic. So it's not something that we could certainly have planned for to mitigate its impact prior. However, once it has hit, there is still an opportunity for reduction, that we could be able to mitigate its impact after the crisis has occurred. How has government responded? Criticism is that we are reactive in our risk management as opposed to being proactive.
No. Thanks very much, Thabo. And you are right. The risk management is one of the key issues that government has been using. But I'm not sure the extent to which we are said to be reacting, because as you are aware, government proactively appointed an advisory panel of scientists and professors to be able to advise government from time to time. That's why, as a result of that, we then developed a risk-adjusted strategy, which then is the one that advises us from time to time on how we should manage the pandemic. So, one of the issues that is very key is that collectively we must take responsibility, all of us. As Tshifhiwa was saying, we must walk the talk. We can put lots of campaign, but if we don't practically do what is expected of us as society as a whole, behave in a manner that will enable us to reduce the risk of the pandemic and be able to make sure that we reduce the spread, will not be able to then attract and convince anybody who will want to come and visit South Africa. So it's a matter that collectively all of us we must work together to make sure that we fight this pandemic by making sure that we adhere to what the advisory people are saying, professionals are saying from the Department of Health and government, and adhere to all the regulations and the rules that has been put in place. But critical to that is that we must create confidence to travelers that when they come to South Africa, they will be safe. And there are many measures that we can put in place, or that we have put in place, that we should continue to put in place to make sure that we create that confidence to travelers to be able to come into South Africa, knowing very well that they will be safe.
No, you're correct. Of course, it's a multi-pronged approach, but there are things that are expected to come from government. There are things that are expected to come from the agencies, and there are things that are expected to come from the tourism product owners themselves. But let's talk largely about what the expectation is on the part of government. Basic infrastructure that gives a sense that it is indeed safe. There's high level of safety for people to come to the country. What are those measures? What have you done in practical terms?
Well, in practical terms, firstly, because we are working together with the industry. We're not working in isolation with outside the industry, especially from the tourism point of view. We have, working together with the industry, developed a norms and standards, of which some of the norms and standards that we have agreed upon, we then took it to government, a cabinet approved it. We're just currently waiting for the minister, and as you know, there's been changes. The new minister to familiarize herself with the norms and standards that has been agreed upon by cabinet, to then gazette it. But at the same time, we are working with the Department of Health to make sure that we speed up the process of vaccination, because the long-term solution to the problem is vaccination. We need to make sure that we speed up the vaccination so that we are able to make sure that we reach the level that is required, that will then bring confidence into the travelers that will want to travel to come to South Africa. But it's not a South African problem. You see, the way how our markets, the European markets, for example, are treating not just South Africa, the continent as a whole, is different from how they treat the other continents, which has got a higher rate of infection than the continent Africa has. But they are not being treated in the same way. That's one issue.
Yeah.
The other issue that we need to do is to say, how do we create an environment where there is one system of health protocol that is followed throughout the world and the continent, so that travelers don't travel from one destination to the next and the requirements are not the same. And that creates a lot of uncertainty, a lot of confusion, and which therefore restrict or create a situation where it becomes difficult for tourists to travel, because they are not certain what is that is required, what is that is not required.
Yeah.
But once we are able to create that certainty, which certainty must then be created by all government. It can't just be South African government alone. It should be the whole of Africa, the whole of other European and Americas and everybody else, to be able, this is a system that all of us must then follow, so that travelers know that when they travel, they will know how they are expected to be treated and what are the requirements that will need them to, so that we create a seamless system.
All right.
So
let's take a break. When we come back, I want Tshifhiwa as well as Rosemary to weigh in on that reduction in market confidence and what the industry itself is suggesting should particularly happen, as you're talking about those discrepancies and inequalities in how various continents or countries are perceived by the world. We've got the Deputy Minister of Tourism, Amos Mahlalela, as well as Tshivhengwa and Rosemary Anderson. Our panel tonight in conversation on what needs to be done for the recovery of the tourism business sector. We have the Deputy Minister of Tourism, Fish, Amos Mahlalela, the CEO of the Tourism Business Council of South Africa, Tshivhengwa, and the National Chairperson of the Federated Hospitality Association of Southern Africa, Rosemary Anderson. We've got you tonight on WhatsApp with your questions and your comments, as well as on Twitter at Newsroom405. What is required? What are your recommendations for the recovery of this sector? Tshifhiwa, before the break, the Deputy Minister raising the question of reduction of market confidence. It's certainly one of the risks that comes with a pandemic of this nature. Was the sector ready? Did you perceive that this would possibly be the outcome, and at what level? And did you have a plan in place to mitigate the impact?
Well, Tabo, no one was ready, from all sectors of the economy. I think one of the things that's quite critical is to understand that we're dealing with a health issue that happens to impact tourism and many other sectors of the economy. So none of us were ready. This happens once every 100 years or so. I think the good thing, or the positive thing, is that we are so advanced at the moment that at the least we are able to come up with vaccines, at the rate that we did, and be able to sort of try to return to some level of normalcy. So no one was ready, and perhaps no one could have been ready for this. It's a shocker to the world.
Yeah.
I think when we look at it, in hindsight, we're going to have to look at it and say, could we have done some scenarios, whereby we could say, well, if there's a pandemic, this is how we're going to respond to it. But if you look at the situation at hand, it's how we respond to it that's more important. And you would see that, each country around the globe, panicked and try to figure out how we're going to deal with this, because it's a new thing that no one has ever seen. And the advancement of scientific technology has helped us to get to where we are today. I think that, when we talk about the level of confidence, what's more critical is that the rollout of the vaccination that we are doing now, and the fact that there are people that are taking up, this vaccine, is a positive thing. We need more people to take up the vaccine so that we can return to some level of normalcy. And we need more people, especially within the tourism value chain, to take up the vaccine. We don't have any other alternative at the moment.
But how do you do that, though, in a context of vaccine apartheid, for lack of a better word, where we are saying only 2% of the continent is now vaccinated? When you look at Europe, they are sitting at probably 67%. In the United States, they're way above the 54%. So when you go to market to say, well, the continent is still vaccinating at 2%, what degree of confidence will you inspire there?
Well, we've got to control what we can control. And what we can control is what we do here in South Africa. The fact that we have the supply of vaccine and many people can go and get vaccinated is a positive. The fact that we are open for 18 years old all the way is a positive. I think we can control what we can do here in South Africa. And that is why I'm saying that as much as, we can talk about the vaccine apartheid in terms of many countries not having access to these vaccines, it's a different thing that needs to be dealt by, the likes of African Union and many other people that are confident enough and understand this thing enough to deal with. But for us here in South Africa, we have an opportunity to be the first mover within, this new world of post-COVID, whereby, being vaccinated is what's going to get the economy back on its feet. And if we don't take this chance, there may not be any other chances that we may take going forward. So what I'm saying is that it's important for us in the tourism sector, for us within the value chain across the board, from airlines to someone who's doing arts and crafts in a township or in the village, to bed and breakfast, to hotels and everybody else. I think it's important to say that we've been waiting for this moment. Yeah. We've been talking about this since last year, to say what's going to get us out of where we are. Yeah. Is the vaccines, and the vaccines arrive, and then we have an issue of hesitancy. Yeah. What I'm trying to say is to encourage, those that are within our value chain and those that are within other supportive industries to really get on board, so that we can get more people back at work and we can get the economy to uptick again. Yeah. And we can sustain this in the long term. So it's that important But we have to worry about what we can control, and what we can control is here in South Africa.
Rosemary, is there space for common protocols? Tshifhiwa saying, let's control what we can control. The Deputy Minister saying, maybe we should think about coming up with common health protocols for all nations, not just for the African continent, that we all can look at. I mean, if you look at certain other countries, they are already talking of a vaccine passport, where we are still uncertain at this particular point as far as South Africa is concerned. What is room there for having common protocols?
Yes, I agree with our Deputy Minister. I think common protocols around the world would be a great thing. But unfortunately, I think we've just got to increase our rate of vaccination. Just like we mentioned before, you've got to walk the talk. We've just got to do that. We're not going to be regarded as a great place to visit until we actually improve our levels of vaccination. So that is something that government needs to really push, because our tourism sector will not recover until we actually have got a higher level of vaccination, because other travelers will just not come here, as I mentioned before, if they feel the country isn't on the same level as the country that they've come from.
What if that level of vaccine coverage doesn't happen in the next 2 years? What will be of the tourism sector then, Rosemary?
Well, our government has assured us, I think, the figure of 70% they're talking about by the end of the year. So, and obviously we're starting to also produce vaccines within our country. So we did have a slow start, but we could do a huge campaign to really fast track everything now, and that's what I really hope. The problem with South Africa is that there are not enough citizens in South Africa who have sufficient disposable income to enjoy the tourism and hospitality venues in South Africa. So we are not able to sustain the hospitality and tourism sector on just our own citizens. We need international tourism to actually allow our whole sector to survive. So that's why we desperately need international tourism. And unfortunately, to me, everything hinges on the vaccination. So any help that our sector can give governments, we will support and market the fact that people should be having vaccinations. And I often think, just look at what other people are doing. And as I mentioned at the beginning of our discussion today, just look at the UK. It is such a good example. The vaccination is not stopping people from getting COVID, this new fourth wave. Yeah. However, it is stopping them getting ill and being hospitalized. So we're actually able to see an economy in the UK which is currently opening up, from big festivals to nightclubs, everything. Yeah. And they're able to manage it, open up the economy, get jobs going again, and at the same time not overburden the healthcare system. Yeah. It's not sustainable to keep on having shutdowns. And I think just being able to look at what another country is doing, like the UK in that regard, I think we're very lucky that we're able to look at them and hopefully copy what they've done.
Deputy Minister, if vaccination or healthcare is the answer to opening up this particular sector, why is the government, especially your department, not pushing for a more coercive strategy to get people vaccinated? I mean, currently it's not mandatory. People pretty much have a choice, and we have seen the uptake being quite low at this particular point. In fact, as Rosemary is talking about the UK, I saw the United States as well, in what is the end of their summer before schools reopen. People are going to full capacity to amusement parks, to concerts, and so on and so forth. And those people are saying, well, possibility might be a spreader, but I'm vaccinated, so I'm okay.
No, as I've indicated, the program of vaccination has been rolled out by government. It's a collective responsibility of all of us. The three spheres of government is expected collectively to play a role. As I've indicated, we are collaborating and working together with the Department of Health. There is a team of the DGs that meets from time to time to assess progress, develop strategies linking together with provinces. As you are aware, all these functions are concurrent functions which cannot be done in isolation at the national level. You need a buy-in of provincial government to be able to be in the forefront. You need local government to be on board, so that there's a huge social mobilization and education where there is some resistance. Some education has to come in to educate why it is important to vaccinate, what are the benefits of vaccination, so that people understand and there's no hesitancy. But also deal with the negative the issues that are being said or spread about the vaccination. It's something that we must call South Africans, for all of us to understand that the solution to the challenges of not just of tourism, be it you want investors to come and invest to grow the economy so that we create jobs and deal with the problem of poverty, opening the tourism sector, you need certainty, and that certainty will be brought by making sure that everybody take responsibility by making sure that they get vaccinated. And therefore, it's a matter that cannot be left to government alone. While government must provide leadership, but all civil society must come on board and be part of this program and project of engaging everybody to come out and vaccinate, so that we are able to stabilize and begin to live a normal life. Unfortunately, we can't move towards, because of the constitutional imperative, mandatory. It's one of the things that, unfortunately, as the President indicated, it's something that we can't venture into because of the constitution and the human rights of individuals. But it's a matter that if you take certain sectors, they can assist in making sure that each and everyone in that particular sector is vaccinated, so that they are able to make sure that they start operating fully. Right. Because whoever that is part of their system or their stakeholders, right, they are able to participate because they have got an assurance that all of them have been vaccinated. All right.
So as an industry, we'll hear from the industry if they are prepared to venture into that space when we come back. That's Deputy Minister Fish Amos, Mahlalela, Tshivhengwa, and Rosemary Anderson. We'll put that question to the Tourism Business Council. Do the different sectors in this industry value the importance of this risk differently? And are some okay with this suggestion of vaccine passports to gain access to their establishments? And are some opposed to it? Let's hear that view from the sector in a moment. 07. Welcome back to our conversation tonight on tourism. My panel includes the Deputy Minister of Tourism, Fish Amos Mahlalela, CEO of the Tourism Business Council, Tshivhengwa, and the National Chairperson of the Federated Hospitality Association of Southern Africa, Rosemary Anderson. And we're taking your WhatsApp messages as well with some questions for our panel tonight on 072 110 5584. Tshifhiwa, I want to move on to the other risk in a moment, that of job losses and how we've responded to that. Not only that, but business closures as well. But let's talk about that issue. Do different sectors in the industry value the importance of this risk of being vaccinated differently? And we've seen certain private companies coming out boldly to say, if you're not vaccinated by December, you're not going to be doing business with us or even be employed in the company. Is the sector willing to take that kind of position?
Well, that issue it's obviously under consideration, as we look into, how, the world responds to COVID. And I think we must keep in mind that we haven't been able to be fully operational for the past 20 months. And the fact that we haven't been fully operational, it means that a lot of people have been sitting at home. Now, unless if someone has an alternative to get more people back to work and to get people to travel into our country, vaccine remains an option that we have on the table to ensure that we return to some level of normalcy. So for us, we look at this as a way of getting more people back at work. But yes, there is vaccine hesitancy. There's a lot of people that are doing research on their iPhones and reading many different articles and trying to say that vaccines are unsafe and so forth and so on. And we need to educate people that we do take many vaccines in our lifetime and many medicines in our lifetime, and that's why we are where we are today. So it's important that in everything that we do, we educate various sectors, we educate the population of our country to say the options that we have on the table are the ones that are presented to us. Yeah. And if we desire to go to a stadium and watch a soccer match or rugby or tennis or whatever we watch, we must understand that this is the only way not to make as many people be sick and go to hospitals. We need to understand that the problem, and Rosemary spoke about this, the problem is that we tend to get too many people going to hospital, and then there's a shortage of oxygen, and therefore we have these lockdowns that we've been having. How do we avoid that? It's been proven over and over again that if you are vaccinated, you are able to avoid that, and we're able to sort of return to some level of normalcy. So for us, within the sector, we haven't ventured into saying that, if you're not vaccinated, you're not going to be allowed into this establishment. But as time goes on, we're going to have to consider that. We've been talking about, how do we get people into stadiums for large events, to theaters, and to many other places that are of hospitality nature that supports tourism, accommodation, and everything else. We need to consider that, those places should be able to be enjoyed by those that are vaccinated. Otherwise, those that are don't want to be vaccinated, they can enjoy the current restrictions that we have. But those that are vaccinated, they should have much greater freedom and being able to go to soccer matches, cricket and whatnot, and theaters, and enjoy those type of things and boost our sector. If we don't do that, there's nothing else that's going to boost our sector. So that's why we've been pushing. There are many campaigns that are done by various people within the tourism space. There's a JEB for tourism. There are many others that are being done by international organizations. We've got to do something to make sure that we return to work. Otherwise, we're going to be having this conversation next year, this time, talking about people not back at work, talking about lockdown level, whatever at that time.
Right.
That's not desirable.
Let's talk about that. And it segues nicely into the next question of our conversation, that question of getting people back at work. The risk of job losses was always an imminent one, particularly if we're going to speak of less than 2% occupancy in some hotels and so on and so forth. And we spoke about that quite extensively with yourself. But you also raised concerns about the response and the relief offered to businesses that were closing down. Has that situation improved, and are we responding better to that challenge?
Well, the challenge is still there, Mr. Bzuli, because we haven't been able to operate fully. The only thing that will enable the industry to be back on its feet is when we see a lot of people staying in our hotels, going to attractions, renting more cars, having conferences, going on cruise ships, and many, many other things, including events, mega sporting events and concerts and so forth and so on. So we cannot rely on loans. And I've said this in the past, that there could be government guarantee loans. A loan is a loan. You still have to pay it back. We have to rely on what we do best, giving hospitality to the people that come to our establishments, earning an income, impacting the economy, and having our employees, secured in their jobs. And that's what we ought to do. Yes, government has put, some, like I said, loan guarantee scheme. There has been, 200 million that came from the Department of Tourism. There has been money for tour guides and so forth and so on. Was it enough? No, we need more money. But we do understand that government is constrained. What we need to do is to go back to work. And that is why vaccinating is our way to go back to work. And we can create money, not only for ourselves, for government as well. And that's how business runs. So for us is that, that we cannot rely on that. We have to rely on what we've done best. Let's impact the economy. Let's get people back at work. But we need certainty. As the Deputy Minister have said, we need certainty in terms of, the lockdown regulations. When we market overseas, we don't want people to book now. And when they arrive here, we are shut down because we didn't vaccinate and there's no sale of alcohol. We can't go to the beach or we can't go to the park. That's not going to work. It's going to damage the brand even more. Yeah. So those are the things that we have. Those are the tools that we have on the table. Yeah. And we need to utilize those tools that we have. And that's why we've been pushing for our value chain to get vaccinated, because that's the only solution. We cannot be asking for bailouts all the time.
Deputy Minister, did you develop a contingency? Deputy Minister, did you develop a contingency plan that was adequate enough to respond to the mounting unemployment that the sector is faced with, the longer it stays under the current limitations of the lockdown, and of course the ensuing business closures as well?
Now, I'm sure you're aware, Mr. Mdluli, the announcement that was made by the President and then the then Minister of Finance as part of a package to try to intervene. It might not be enough, but there is some intervention that government put in place. The TERS that is there for those that are not working. But as the CEO Tshifhiwa was saying, the solution to the problem is that we must work towards opening the industry. People must go back to work, and the solution for that to happen is that people must move very fast in making sure that everybody that is vaccinated and are able to reach the same level that most of our markets have reached, so that we are able to make sure that we open the market, we go back to business, because as the CEO is saying, government has put bank guarantee loans, but they will take that loans and do what with it? Because there is no business until such time that we make sure that the business is open, and then we're able that they can then go back and say now the business is open, and then that loan bank guarantee is still there, as you might have heard the President was saying. There's a low take into that loan, because for example, from the tourism point of view sector, if they take that loan, what are they going to do with it? Because the business is not open, the business it's not operational, because our market that we are so highly dependent upon, as you are aware, UK, for example, has put us on a red light because of the issue that we're not yet vaccinated. They don't feel that coming to South Africa they will be safe. So for us to create that safety and certainty, the solution is vaccination. But as you are aware, those that are not unemployed, they've been given the test by the Department of Labor through the UAF. But that's not the solution to the problem.
Rosemary,
the long-term solution to the problem is that we must open business, and the only way of opening the business in this current situation is that South Africans must come out in their big numbers and take the vaccine, so that we are able to go back to normality, all of us, and then be able, therefore, to open business and do all the things that we're doing under normal environment and a normal situation.
Indeed, high safety and security a priority there with people vaccinated. Rosemary, I'll weigh in with you when we come back on what your members are saying, particularly around the relief measures that have been put in place. And we'll take some questions from our viewers coming through tonight on 072-110-5584. We're back with you tonight on In Focus, Newsroom Africa Channel 405, with our panel in conversation on the recovery of the tourism sector. The Deputy Minister of Tourism, Fish, Amos Mahlalela, CEO of the Tourism Business Council of South Africa, Tshivhengwa, and the National Chairperson of the Federated Hospitality Association of Southern Africa, Rosemary Anderson. Rosemary, what are your members saying about the last 20 months and the response of relief assistance that they have received?
I don't think there's possibly enough money to have helped everyone, and so it's just not a sustainable thing, obviously, to try to keep on bailing people out. But what people would really have loved is something like what they have in the UK, which is the bounce back loan, where the banks extended an interest-free loan of 12 months interest-free loan, and then it was payable back over 6 years over a very fair interest. That really would have helped people. And I actually hope we could do that even now. As we just mentioned earlier, the only sustainable thing really is to get back in the game, and that's to be considered a good and safe country to get to, and that's obviously the vaccination is the first prize. However, in the meantime, while we try to get to those numbers which are compatible with our main international tourist trading partners, we need something to be able to survive. So I think if the government introduced something like the bounce back loan, which is an interest-free 12-month loan from the banks, that would go a long way. We're actually just in spring now, summer's coming up, hopefully the COVID numbers are going down, so a lot of people are just struggling to hold on at the moment. And unfortunately, many of them are really struggling to get tours. It's just got a lot of technical problems, so a lot of our members within FEDHASA are not able to access tours. So unfortunately, they're not.
What are the difficulties? Just outline for us. Why can't they access tours?
I think there's a technical problem with tours. So physically, from the telephone number not working to not being able to get hold of people. Tshifhiwa could also expand on that, but we've been having meetings with the department. It's not like we actually haven't tried to engage. There are just some fundamental problems with regards to actually trying to roll out tours at the moment. But we really hope it will actually be fast-track and improved. But that is the current situation where our members really are not able to get hold of tours. And we're actually desperate. We're at a bit of a time where it's like the sun's coming up. Things are coming right, but a lot of people just can't hold on any longer because there have been so many lockdowns. And the problem also at the moment is that the restrictions that a lot of restaurants trade in at the moment with a maximum of 50 people inside are just not financially viable to continue trading. So an average spur has between 300 and 500 seats. To only trade with 50 people allowed 50 seats, it's just not a tenth of your business. It's just not financially viable. So we're struggling to remain financially viable trading within the current lockdown restrictions. So we really, really need some help at this time. But as we mentioned before, first prize, the only really sustainable thing is to quickly get the whole country vaccinated as quickly as possible. But just to keep people afloat in the meantime, an interest-free loan like they've done in the UK, like the bounce back loan, would go a long way. And if we could just get tours really up and running, that would be great.
Deputy Minister, are you hearing this concern or this dissatisfaction with how the TERS process is actually working and whether the system is properly configured to be able to deal with the huge demand, particularly also to assist the tourism sector?
Yeah, and I hear it's very unfortunate that such situation is happening. As you know, is not within our control as the Department of Tourism. It's squarely lying on the Department of Labour and Employment. It's a matter that it is worrying, and we hope and believe that the Minister of Labour and Employment will try his level best. The matter was raised in Parliament today by some members, and there was a promise that the Minister was saying, no, they are working very hard to make sure that the system work quicker, work in a manner that enables to make sure that it meets the demands that the sector or those that needs that service. The service is provided expeditiously and efficiently, so that you don't have a situation of uncertainty where people, they are not sure whether they are going to get their fair share of that test. It is concerning, and it's a matter that through the task team that I've referred to of the DGs, it's a matter that we'll raise as well to see what is that can be done. Is it a system problem or is it a human problem? Where exactly lie the glitches? So that we are able to make sure that I have expected by this time it should not be a challenge, because we've introduced tests last year. I thought by this time the system is working very well. It's for the first time I'm hearing that the system is still clogged up. The system is still not as efficient, as effective as it is expected to be.
All right, let's take some questions coming through tonight on WhatsApp for the panel around tourism and employment. This is from Temba in Alexander. Hi, Taba. I would like to ask if our government is aware of the fact that in the tourism sector, particularly restaurant industry, there are hardly any South African citizens. What is government doing about that? Question from Temba, Minister. Deputy Minister, you can handle that one. Eddie saying in Orendalsrus there. Asking a question from Eddie in Orendalsrus. We can go to that question. All right, we'll come back to that question. Minister, let's take that one from Temba. Government aware of the fact that tourism, restaurant industry in particular, there are hardly any South Africans. Have you done an audit of that particular sector and understand what are the numbers, Deputy Minister?
Well, to be honest, we've not, from the department point of view, we've not done any audit to determine the extent to which South Africans or non-South Africans are employed in the restaurants. But what that's a responsibility that belongs to the Department of Labor.
Yeah. But doesn't it worry you? I mean, we've spoken about this issue with Tshifhiwa a lot of it. It's a question that comes up over and over and over again to say the hospitality sector, why is it so full of foreign nationals and there are no South Africans who are employed there? It should be something that if it is not fact and it is not true, you must come with the facts and quickly dispel at your fingertips.
No, it is a worrying factor, and without having the audit and the proper information, we can't just say no, it's not true. But what has happened, the department has done, working together with the Human Research Council, to determine the extent to which the skills in the tourism sector we have in South Africa. It came to the conclusion that there's a huge shortage of skills in the tourism sector. And therefore, that's why as a department, we then developed a strategy, a human resource strategy to say, how then do we build that capacity that is lacking? How do we come up with training programs that will then be able to deal with this gap that has been identified as a huge problem in terms of skills, which the industry might argue to say, no, we want to employ South Africans, but the skill level, it's not there, or it's extremely very low. Hence, they find themselves in the situation where they had to employ foreign nationals. But there should be regulations as well that regulate the employment of foreign nationals, which is a matter that rests with the Department of Labor as well as the Department of Home Affairs. So it's a matter that we need to pay special attention and be able to address it without being seen to be becoming xenophobic in a way, or in a manner that becomes an enclave that we think South Africa becomes an enclave. We're an integral part of the continent, we're an integral part of Africa. And therefore, there should be a legislation that is able to say how much do we take and what skills do you need in terms of the skills level. And then how many skills how many people do you allow to employ as a sector? What percentage vis-a-vis South Africans? So that there's proper certainty and regulations that guides the industry.
Right.
If there is no proper regulation, the industry, you won't blame them. They will continue to do what they think is best for them. But what is important for us is to come up with legislation or regulations that regulate that problem that Temba has identified.
I see.
So that we're able to make sure that there's a balance between South Africans and non-South Africans that gets employed in the sector.
Deputy Minister, let's take more before we run out of time. Eddie in Odendasres saying the tourism industry has a special role to resuscitate the economy. It will be vital to allow the sector to operate and create possible jobs. We need support all structures in the tourism sector. Makudu Ndamago saying while South Africa is busy with COVID-19 vaccination, we should encourage domestic tourism in order to resuscitate the tourism industry, which is severely affected by the pandemic. Kagiso in the Vaal, what is the tourism department doing on the local parks, especially in rural areas that were handed over to municipalities but are failing to utilize those spaces, especially in Nkomazi? The Masibegele Recreational Park is left there underutilized and the facility is rotting. Minister? Deputy Minister?
You know why I'm laughing is because I went to that park and I called the municipality, sat down with the director responsible and to ask them what is that they're doing about this park. We have reached an agreement on what is that needs to be done in order to revive and resuscitate that park so that it becomes operational, because it is a very product that can be used effectively and can create opportunities for those rural communities.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that, Minister. Let's leave it there. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Tshifhiwa, as well as Rosemary, thank you very much for your time. Deputy Minister Fish, Amos, Mahlalela. That's where we'll leave it for tonight.